Oh boy, I am tired. Forgive my appearance. I'm looking at my monitor right now and I got bags under my eyes. I'm looking a little weathered. It's been a long weekend/week. We're going to talk about it today. What's up, friends? Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Chase to Summit Trail Talk podcast. I'm your host, Dave. And here we talk about all things fitness tech, wearables, ultramarathon running in general, what I'm doing on a given day, being a dad, and just things I'm interested in because I am in this room with a microphone and I'm alone. So I do what I want here. So in this episode today, it's kind of a catch-up episode. I haven't put out a podcast in a couple of months. So we're going to be talking about all the things that have been happening since December, basically. And also, we're going to be talking about the Boston Run Show, which I just attended a couple of days ago, where it's currently Wednesday. The Boston Run Show was last weekend, still fresh in my memory. So I just want to hit on a few highlights of that event because it was really enlightening and different for me. So I'm going to share that today. Before we get all the way into it, got a couple of things I want to mention. First of all, thank you to the Patreon members who keep supporting the podcast and the main YouTube channel. There's some of you out there that have been supporting on Patreon for well over a year, and I really appreciate it. Admittedly, I don't do enough on Patreon, and I know that, and that's something I plan to change. I just need to come up with some ideas that are fun and maybe something like weekly podcast episodes that are only on Patreon or live streams. I don't really know yet, but I do plan on changing that. I do have some help now. So my wife, Jen, has been helping out doing some things around the channel, which has been really great. And we've got some big ideas. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't heard of Patreon, you want to learn about what that is, I'll have it linked in the show notes down below. And on top of that, I also want to thank the YouTube members out there who have been helping support the main channel for a while now. I also want to give a big shout out to the merch store. So this is something I'll talk about again in this episode when we get to the Boston Run Show, but something new and exciting that came from the Boston Run Show was that we announced some new merch. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. If you're not, and this is audio only, I'm sorry, but I can try to describe it for you. So what you're looking at here is the new Chase to Summit running singlet, running tank, and this is in collaboration with Rabbit. You can see the Rabbit logo there. Rabbit being a California-based company that makes super high-quality gear. I've been wearing this one in particular for about a month now, testing it out to see if I like it, and I gotta say, it is one of my favorite tanks right now. During the hot weather season, this is gonna be what I reach for. It's perforated. There's little holes in it. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but there's tiny little holes. It's super stretchy, and the material is just really, really comfortable. It's got this new Chase to Summit logo on the front there with mountains and trees incorporated in the text, which actually hired an artist to do this. So shout out to the artist. But it came out really good, and I'm very excited about it. These are now available on the merch store. You can check that out. I'll have that linked in the description down below. And there's a couple of new other items as well. The green tank I have here only comes in a men's, unfortunately. They were out of women's in this design in terms of Rabbit. But we do have another design that's a black tank that has a similar look. However, it's a different material. It's super soft, and it's got laser cut holes down the side, as well as a really simple, minimalistic Chase to Summit logo with mountains integrated into the text. Also really cool. Also another piece that I'll be reaching for in this upcoming spring and summer season. And on top of that, we also have this new hoodie and a t-shirt that matches it. This is the Chase to Summit Hills hoodie, I like to call it. And again, brand new design. I actually did this design myself, and I'm really proud of it. I'm not good at holding stuff up to the camera. But this hoodie is super comfortable. It's a polyester cotton blend, and I'm loving it. This one's lightweight. It's not like a heavyweight hoodie like the one I'm wearing here. So it's great for, not like those in-between months, spring, fall, even on a cool night in the summer. This will be another one I reach for. So if you're interested, along with all the hats that have been around, go check out the merch store. And of course, as always, you can use the discount code for podcast listeners only. That is LISTEN20, LISTEN 20 at checkout for 20% off your order. And by doing that, you'll get a pretty big discount. You'll get some swag and we all win. Actually, I think if you use that 20% off, I pretty much make no money, which is fine. I just want to get some of this cool stuff out there. So thank you very much. That's the only plug I'll do in this podcast today. I'm reading off my phone, which is bad form for podcasting, but gotta have my notes, All right, let's talk about the Boston Run Show. So if you don't know what the Boston Run Show is, it's a big expo, a big convention that is all about running. And this all kinds of different brands attend the run show. You got Nike was there. I think Nike was there. I might be wrong. Marathon Sports was there. They had all kinds of different shoe brands. We had Garmin there. We had Wahoo with their Kicker Run treadmills there with a bunch set up so people could try them out. And a whole bunch of like smaller companies that are local to New England. And it was my first time attending an expo as an exhibitor. So we had our own booth, we had the table, we had all the hats and the t-shirts and stuff set up so people could come by, say hi, grab some merch. And it was extremely tiring. So if you don't know me, or you haven't heard me talk about this before, I'm actually pretty introverted. I'm not like an outgoing, loud person, despite what you see on camera. And it was a little overwhelming to have like thousands of people around me and people engaging with me and talking and socializing all day. It was awesome. So if you were there, thank you. But by the end of the day, I was just like drained and I needed to go curl up in a ball in a dark corner of my house to sort of recharge. But the event itself went off really well. It was kind of a trip. Like I've never been an exhibitor before. So we ended up renting like a U-Haul truck. I got all the stuff we needed beforehand. So we had like racks to hang t-shirts on and stuff. And a huge, huge shout out to my wife, Jen, and my brother-in-law, Adrian, who both helped me the entire weekend with this event. So that was packing up the truck, driving to Boston the day before on Friday, setting up the booth, attending the event as an exhibitor. They helped me man the fort at the booth. So if I had to like get lunch or go to the bathroom, like I had someone there at the booth, which was great. And they both did it out of the kindness of their hearts. They were there all day long grinding and it was a lot for them. So thank you, Jen and Adrian. It meant a lot to me for you to be there. So actually the day before the Boston Run Show, that was on Saturday, there was like a setup for the event for all the exhibitors. You could kind of preset your booth. I didn't plan this great. So in the afternoon on Friday, I actually hosted the first ever Chase the Summit group run with a bunch of local people that came, and we ran at the Middlesex Fells Reservation just north of Boston. And I did this as like a primer to the run show. I thought it would be fun to get a group of people out on the trails. Unfortunately, I set up that group run to be at 4 p.m. in the afternoon on Friday, and we set up the booth at noon. However, getting out of Boston in that big U-Haul van, we ended up hitting a bunch of traffic, and it was a scramble to get home, get changed, and then get down to the trail to meet everyone. So I ended up being like 20 minutes late to my own group run. So I'm really sorry about that. If you did attend the group run and you were waiting around for me, apologies for that. With that being said, this was the first ever group run I've ever put together. I mean, I know a lot of like influencers out there have like shakeout runs or whatever, and I don't really consider myself to be in the influencer space. I hate that word in general, but I thought it would be fun to see like if there's any like-minded people in the area that might want to meet up and go for a run. Because to be honest, I'm typically a solo runner. Again, the introverted side of me likes to be solo. But this day actually turned out surprisingly good. I'm going to be real with you. I was super nervous about this group run. Because I thought I would show up at the trailhead and I'd be by myself and no one would be there, which didn't happen, thankfully. And B, because I just didn't know what to expect, how to socialize. And even in a group running environment, when I'm with other people, I never know if I'm running too fast or I'm running too slow or you know what I mean? But what I didn't account for was the trail conditions. So the Middlesex Fells Reservation is just north of Boston here in Massachusetts. And if you live around here, you know it's been very cold, but also we've had this like freeze thaw cycle going on where it's going to rain one day, then the next day it's like 10 below zero, then the next day it snows. And that kind of conditions lead up to a very icy trail running experience. The entire trail that we ran had a good like 4 to 6 inches of solid ice on it, like an ice rink. And thankfully, everybody that came out was, we made the best of it. We'll put it like that. We did not run fast. We put in like 5 miles at a pretty chill pace because we were chatting and stuff, but also because the trails were so icy, they really dictated how fast we could run. None of us brought micro spikes. And because of that, some of us ended up falling down. But with all that said, it was a lot of fun. And what it did for me was open my eyes to, there is a community here that wants to go trail running. And what I'm going to do moving forward from now on is try to put more of these group runs on the calendar. And maybe we can grow this into a bigger thing on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, probably bi-weekly to get things rolling right off the bat. So if you do live in the New England area, the Boston area, north of Boston, definitely stay tuned. Follow me on Instagram and follow me on YouTube and all the places. I'll probably announce it on Strava even, but I'm going to start putting like group run dates on the calendar, especially now that things are starting to warm up and the trails will be in better conditions, because I think it would be fun. It's going to hold me accountable to keep a run going on a Friday, and it will be a good reason to get together with other like-minded people, and we'll be able to talk shop. So again, thanks to all that attended. It was a lot of fun. I hope you can make the next one, and stay tuned for future group runs because it was surprisingly fun. But what else was cool about the run show this year is that it was also a combination. It was not only just the run show, it was also the Boston Outdoor Show, where in previous years, these would be 2 separate events. This year, they put it all into one event. There are a lot of companies there. There were like mountain bike companies, canoe companies, people like that. And some interesting like fundraisers and things that, maybe I want to be a part of someday. So that side was cool as well. But the outdoor side also had another key speaker, which was Conrad Anker. If you know who Conrad is, you might know who he is. He's been on Netflix. He's kind of the most legendary climber of all time. This guy has scaled all of the peaks in Nepal and K2 and Everest and all those things, but he also has done like first ascents, and you might remember him from a movie called Meru on Netflix, which was a big deal for him, where he did a first ascent on a big mountain. So he was there doing a speech, and the crazy thing on Saturday was after the event was over, the event held like a exhibitor mixer where they gave us like a drink ticket to go get a beer at the Harpoon Brewery just outside the event. And so my wife, Jen, and my brother-in-law, Adrian, and myself, we went to get that free beer. You can't pass that up. But while we were there, we're waiting in line to get like our beer and pretzel. And who cuts me in line but Conrad Anker himself? We ended up chatting over a beer for like half an hour. And we were talking about how he grew up and what supplements he takes and how how his climbing has changed over time and what he does to keep his fitness there. And it was really awesome. We learned a lot about him. It was funny. He actually followed me on Instagram while we were there. He was asking about the channel. That was really cool. I mean, that was like my little fanboy moment. I got to kind of nerd out with Conrad Anker over a beer. So that was the Boston Run Show in a nutshell. Let's talk about a couple of other things. So another new exciting thing I did last week, or a couple of weeks ago rather, was I was actually on Jeff Pelletier's podcast. So if you follow the trail running niche on YouTube, you probably have seen Jeff's content. He makes really high quality, like documentary films about all of the races that him and his girlfriend Audrey run. And the quality of these videos are like top notch. We're talking like Netflix quality films on YouTube about ultra running. Amazing stuff. Long form with voiceovers and details about the areas and all the things he does. And really an amazing filmmaker. So he launched a new podcast called The Creator Cooldown. And I was honored to be the first guest on this podcast. And it was actually a really awesome experience. I've been on a few podcasts in the past, and no shame on them. That was a lot of fun. But I would say that Jeff was probably one of the most well-prepared podcasts that I've been on. He was an amazing host. He asked the right questions. We dug deep into like how the channel got started and where the name Chase the Summit came from, and like even financial things. The whole idea behind his new podcast is to talk about like pulling the curtains open behind the scenes of content creators in this space, in like the running and fitness space. So it was cool. We talked for like an hour and I shared a lot of weird information that maybe no one cares about, but judging by the response that his new podcast has seen so far, it seems like some people care. So if you haven't yet, go check out Jeff's new podcast. That's Jeff Pelletier. I'll link it in the description down below, and give him a follow while you're over there because it's really awesome. He's got some amazing guests coming up, and I'm really looking forward to following it. Okay, next topic, the Garmin Tactix 8. So if you follow the main channel, you may have seen that the new Garmin Tactix 8 came out last week. Just about a week from today, last week. I'm actually wearing one right now. I actually swapped out the band for my favorite color band there. And this is the 51 millimeter form factor. If you missed that video, I'll give it to you in a nutshell. The Garmin Tactix 8, just like all previous Tactix series, is sort of a Phoenix model rebranded to be a Tactix model because they include some very unique features under the hood on the Tactix series. These are things like stealth mode that like turns off all the communications on the watch so you can be like behind enemy lines if you're doing tactical things. You've also got the kill switch, which will erase the watch completely and like securely erase it so it can't be recovered if you're like, again, captured and you don't want people seeing your data. I don't know what that's really used for. There's also aviation things on there if you fly planes or you're a pilot. There's night vision goggle mode, of course, for tactical operations when you're looking at your watch with night vision on. And then along with that, you also get all of the things that the Garmin Fenix 8 brought to the table. So you still get the dive features, the increased build quality, the dive proof buttons, all of that stuff in the Tactix 8, of course, for more money. But it is pretty much a Garmin Fenix 8 with a layer of tactical features on it and a slightly different design. In terms of the design, it does have a sapphire lens. It also comes in two different sizes, 47 millimeter and 51 millimeter. And it does come in a solar model and a AMOLED model, only in the bigger size though. So if you want the solar Tactix 8, you will need to get the 51 millimeter form factor. If you are cool with AMOLED, you can go with the 47 millimeter form factor. But personally, the thing that makes it stand out for me, in my opinion, is really the design, because the Tactix 8 has a very unique look. It's got a flat bezel on it, and it's just like a more stealth, minimalistic design compared to the equivalent Fenix 8. It's also all blacked out, which I prefer. It's got a nice DLC coating on it, and the buttons actually have like a texture on it, which the Fenix is missing. So if you want to learn more about the Tactix 8, definitely go check out the main channel in my video. It's not really a review video. It's sort of like an unboxing, first look, here's what it does kind of thing. But a very interesting watch nonetheless. And if you do have questions about it, feel free to comment in the comments down below on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio version and you have a question, shoot me a DM on Instagram or something. We're going to move on to human-powered health. This is another video I put out on YouTube about VO2 max testing, lactate testing, running gait analysis, force plates, and resting metabolic rate. Both my wife Jen and I visited a local lab here in Massachusetts called Human Powered Health. And this is a fully capable lab that has a whole bunch of testing available for both running and cycling. Now, the cool thing about Human Powered Health when it comes to all these tests is that they're pretty advanced. So after you complete your testing, they'll actually email you a link with all of your data organized in sort of a dashboard so you can go through each piece of the pie. And if you go back multiple times, they'll actually plot that data over the course of time. So if you want to see how your VO2 max is increasing over the course of 6 months, you can go get your baseline, go back later after you do a training block and get the difference between before and after, which is super cool. So I made a video about this whole experience getting tested. I want to do even in the podcast, I'll do this. I'll give them a big shout out. Human Powered Health. They didn't sponsor the video. They're not sponsoring this podcast, but they did let Jen and I borrow their lab for the entire day without any other clients around. So we were able to film. We had a camera guy there filming, and we didn't have to worry about other people being in the background or getting permission from people. So we were able to sort of film freely, which was super cool. So what they do to test this is they make you run on a treadmill. You start pretty slow. And then every couple of minutes, they actually poke your finger and make you bleed a little bit. And then they take a sample of your blood with a little machine that can detect how much lactic acid or lactate you have built up in your blood. Then we did the VO2 max test. And you probably know what this is, but your VO2 max is essentially how efficient your body can utilize the oxygen that you're consuming. So every time you take a breath, how much oxygen your body can actually use from that breath while exercising. So to test VO2 max, it's sort of a sufferfest. They basically put you on a treadmill, they make you run at like a pretty chill pace, and then after a couple of minutes at that chill pace, they continue to increase the incline of the treadmill by 1% every 1 minute. Basically, what they want you to do is run until failure. They want you to completely put all of your effort into it, max yourself out before they end the test. And by doing that, you should hit, I think they call it your ventilatory plateau. That's the point at which you're not utilizing all the oxygen you can take in because you've hit that ventilation plateau, which is your VO2 max. Now, the interesting thing about VO2 max testing is that a lot of people don't actually hit their true VO2 max during the test. And the reason because of this is a variety of factors. First of all, you have to wear a big honking mask while you do this test. It's connected to a tube, and it's actually really uncomfortable while you're running because you're sort of gasping for air through this tiny tube in a mask. Some people do this better than others. For example, my wife really hated the mask. She got super uncomfortable. And due to that, she sort of quit her test a little bit early. So because of that, she technically didn't hit her true VO2 max for the test. So that is a problem because it can skew your results. But what they do with the data that they collected before you hit that VO2 max is they extrapolate out or project out where your VO2 max should be with the data they already observed. So it's sort of like an educated guess. Now, for me, the physiologist I was working with, a person named Evan, he got in my head before the test because he told me that most people last between 6 and 12 minutes before they give up on the test or they hit their true max. And so because he told me that, it sort of like gamified the whole situation in my head. And I was telling myself, I am not quitting early. I'm going to last 13 minutes. I'm going to like beat the record on this thing, even though I'm not the most fit person in the world. But because of that, it definitely helped my mental situation. It's definitely not a fun experience. You've got a mask on, you're killing yourself, you're gasping for air, you're at your maximum heart rate. But I was able to kind of power through that. And I did last until the treadmill got up to 12% of incline. And I lasted for like 12 and a half minutes before I quit. And because of that, I actually did hit my true VO2 max according to the data that they received from my oxygen intake and my carbon dioxide output. So the results from the VO2 max test, I'm not going to spoil it here. I want you to watch the video and get the full rundown, but I will say they were much higher than I expected. So my Garmin has been barking at me for like months now, ever since I ran the Vermont 100 endurance race back in July. I feel like every time I go for a run, my Garmin's like, unproductive, your VO2 max is dropping. And it's weird because I haven't really stopped training. I still run a lot on a weekly basis. So I don't know what's going on, if there's something new with the algorithm, but when I did the VO2 max test at this lab, it came back significantly higher than what my Garmin was telling me. And honestly, kind of surprisingly high for the way I've been feeling lately, because I got to be real, it feels like I've got the dad bod coming on pretty strong after the winter. We have 4 kids. It's been crazy around here. I'm not training the way I want to, even though I am still training. The VO2 max result did come back surprisingly high. I'm definitely in like, according to the test, in the upper register in that like excellent or superior zone, even though I may not feel like that. But to learn more about all these tests in the results from them, definitely go check out the full video on the main YouTube channel. You might find it interesting. I found it interesting. That's why I made a video about it. But I will be doing a follow-up video, taking all that data that I got from Human Powered Health and then comparing it with all of the wearables I have. So like Apple Watch, Polar, Coros, Suunto, Garmin, of course, and everything else out there, including some apps on my phone, to seeing which ones are more accurate than the others. And I think that might be kind of interesting. So stay tuned for that video, probably coming in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. And that is a good segue into upcoming races, because this is something I haven't talked about at all on the podcast or on the main channel, because I'm a little apprehensive on what I've signed up for and what I'm looking at. But hey, why not put it all out there, right? So moving into the spring, we've got some races coming up that I'm going to be training for and running. I've got also Jen, she's downstairs. That's why I'm pointing over here. She's also running a race. So Jen is signed up for the Boston Marathon coming up in April. It's coming up quick. She's only got a few weeks left. And unfortunately, she actually has a minor injury that she picked up a couple of weeks ago. She's been killing herself, man. Like, we did a long run together like a month ago. We did a 17-mile run on the Boston Marathon course. We ran the hill, Heartbreak Hill, a couple of times. We did like hill repeats on that to get some elevation gain and get, used to the course. She's run it before. I haven't, but it was good to get out there with her and put some miles in. And actually it was a pretty fun day. But since then, she picked up a weird ankle injury that's like on the top of her foot by her ankle. Yesterday, she actually got an MRI on her foot, and it revealed that she's got some sort of, it's like bursitis. It's like the sheath that's over the tendon is damaged and bruised. But the good news is it's not full-blown tendonitis, and it doesn't appear to be a stress fracture, but it is something that is bothering her. And Boston is only like a few weeks away at this point, so it is a little bit bad timing. And unfortunately, she's had to miss the past couple of weeks of training because of that. But she is optimistic. I'm optimistic for her. I think, judging by the amount of time she hasn't been running, she probably hasn't lost any fitness, and she's still been working out and doing cardio and stuff, just not running. So we'll see what happens. Now, in terms of me, I'm signed up for the Vermont 100 again. This will be my fourth time back at the race. I ran it back in 2019 where I DNF'd at the mile 50 mark. I ran it again back in 2023, I believe. 2023, I finished it. And then I went back again last year in 2024 and finished it yet again. So I have 2 medals, 2 belt buckles to the Vermont 100, and I'm going to be going back for a third, which I'm a little bit scared about. If you watch my Vermont 100 video, you might know that I kind of blew up at mile 60, and the last 40 miles was sort of a sufferfest coming in. I need to mitigate that this time. I don't want to blow up. I don't want to bonk like I did last time. So that's going to be something I need to manage. I was apprehensive to sign up for Vermont again, but I do love the race. I love being a part of it. I love the culture, the atmosphere. I like seeing the familiar faces that we see every year there. The people that have been running it for like 10 years in a row. It's really cool to be there. So I'm happy I signed up and got back in the lottery, and I will be attending again, but I am nervous to run it again. Just because I know the course so well and I know what to expect now, that it's sort of like a PTSD moment in a way where I know what's coming and I'm scared. But on top of that, I'd like to run a couple of other races this year. I want to look at 50Ks, which I haven't nailed any down yet. So I want to put a few 50Ks on the calendar, maybe a 50 miler, something like that. But also I've had my eye on the Twisted Branch 100K. This is a race that takes place in New York, upstate New York. It's in a pretty remote area. It's a super tough race. It's 100K, lots of elevation gain, tough footing. And surprisingly, it is a Western States qualifier, even though it's 100K. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. There's only a few spots left, but I'm thinking about it. And on top of that, I've also been thinking about the San Diego 100 miler that takes place out in California, of course. 100 miles, I think it's got around 13,000 feet of elevation gain. And the X factor for that one is it takes place in June, so it can be pretty hot during that time in that area. But again, something I'm looking at, and there's only a few spots left. With all that information, I'm going to throw this over to you, the viewer of this podcast, the listener. Is there a race I'm missing? Is there a race I should be running this year that you think would be a good fit for what I'm trying to do? I'm going to put the blame on you if I fail at it. But I think it would be an interesting exercise if you're listening or watching. What do you think I should do? The criteria for me is like, I want it to be a Western States qualifier. And ideally, it would be cool to have it in New England, but there's not a lot around here in terms of like 100K to 100 milers. So I've still been looking around. And so I'm going to throw that over to your court now. Comment down below. Let me know what race I should run. Okay. And with that, we've been recording for 38 minutes now. Not a long time, but I wanted to do a quick podcast to get the face back on camera, get a recording out there and talk about what's been going on with the Run Show and Jeff's podcast and all the things that I mentioned in this video and podcast. But I'd also like to ask you a question or have you ask questions. Man, I'm bad at this. In the next episode of the podcast, I want to do a Q&A podcast where anybody out there can ask the questions and I'll try to provide some answers as best I can. If you want to put a question out there, go ahead and drop that in the comments on YouTube. Start it with the Q : or whatever, and then drop your question down there. I'll write all those down and we'll revisit it in the next Q&A episode. I'll also put up a post on Instagram and wherever else you might see me on social media. And if you see that, you can apply your questions there too. And with that, we've reached the end of this podcast, quick and dirty this week. I just wanted to get you updated, talk about the new swag and all the updates. I just dropped my phone. I hope you enjoyed this one, and hopefully I'll see you out on the trail soon if you live in the area and you can join that group run. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube for the podcast and the main channel, and follow me on all of your favorite podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, whatever else. Is there anything else anymore? It seems like they're all shutting down. Google is gone now, right? Well, follow me all those places. Follow me on YouTube. Do all the things. And one more question for you. Is there a guest you'd like to see on the podcast? Comment that too, because I want to have some more guests on here. I got to get better at that. All right, friends, that's the end of this one. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.